Record started. Joining us is driver the number 2 Discount Tire Ford Mustang in the Cup Series, Austin Cindric, as we head to Indianapolis Motor Speedway this weekend. Austin, they are lined up. I mean, we've got 10 hands already raced. So we're just going to dive right in. We're going to start you off with Jenna Fryer. Go ahead, Jenna.
Thanks. Hey, Austin. I know there's no word on if Joseph can drive, and they picked Santino. I'm wondering if you would have liked a shot at that.
No, I think my focus is certainly on the Cup race on Sunday. So I know Santino's significantly more qualified than myself to do that job. So obviously they've got a plan. I really hope Joseph can do the race because I think he's a strong championship contender. And, even without the issue they had in Iowa, you think about the year that they've had and the speed that they've had. So hopefully Joseph can get in the thing, but I know Santino can do the job otherwise.
I know we were asked to limit ourselves to one question, but I'm going to ask you a second one. This is not the first crossover weekend between IndyCar and NASCAR, but it is the first without the COVID restrictions. What do you think that's going to look like? We just hung up on another Zoom with Scott McLaughlin. He said he's going to stay for the race. He didn't last year. He's going to be rooting on the Penske guys. Maybe there's some bets between you guys going on, he alluded to. I'm just wondering, excuse me, what you think this whole crossover weekend can look like now that you guys can all be together.
Well, I guess we on the Cup side last year dropped the ball on sweeping the weekend. So obviously we don't have an Xfinity car this year, so I guess there's no chance to do that. But otherwise, I'm actually excited that I don't have to race on Saturday in the Xfinity race because I actually get to watch the IndyCar race and kind of just do it at my leisure after the conclusion of Cup practice and qualifying. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting to watch those guys. I've been a pretty passionate IndyCar fan my entire life, and in the two-hauler, if there's a session on Peacock, I'm usually watching it, whether if it's practice or qualifying or even the race. So excited to get to watch it in person, and also excited to get to go to Penske Hospitality and have some really good food because it's definitely better than what we normally pull out of the fridge.
Thanks, Austin.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jenna. Let's go to Nate Ryan, NBC. Hey, Nate.
Thanks, Dan. Jenna kind of took my question because obviously we're just the IndyCar reporter interlopers on this Zoom call, but I'll follow up a little bit. Austin, did you make, the president of Team Penske fairly well. Did you make any overtures at all? And is an IndyCar start still something you want to do long-term?
Yeah, obviously I'll be back and forth for sure. I mean, I know my way around that group, I guess. So definitely not a stranger. So I would say you certainly feel at home in some ways, kind of going around there and RP1 or the paddock or whatever you want to call it. So, but as far as wanting to start an IndyCar, absolutely. I mean, it's something I've watched the drivers I've idolized and looked up to my entire life for most IndyCar drivers and come from that world. And I'd love to get a taste of that one day. Not going to set a timeline or a prediction of that, but I can tell you right now, it's probably not that time, but I think focusing on my Cup career is the highest of importance. But I've been a guy that's always loved driving different things and not just, being specialized in a certain field. So certainly love to do that one day and maybe the opportunity to come.
All right. So you didn't even ask TC. It wasn't
no. When it comes for the team that I drive for now, if they need someone and they think I'm that guy, they'll probably come and get me. Because otherwise, I think asking is probably not the right move.
Gotcha. Thanks, Dan.
Sure thing, Nate. All right, let's go to Bob. Hey, Bob.
Yeah, Austin. From a driver's point of view, were you surprised that NASCAR disqualified another team for violation? And what do you think are the ramifications as far as like how teams are going to approach their cars after seeing what NASCAR's rulings this week?
Yeah, I think, obviously I'm not a technically minded individual on the race team, so I think take it with a grain of salt. But from my perspective as someone in the industry, I think NASCAR wants to be taken seriously on modifications, and that's as simple as it comes. And it's obviously at their discretion to figure out what's worse than the next. But as far as the penalties have been dished out this week, yeah, it's been a pretty heavy week on that side of things. But yeah, NASCAR wants to be taken seriously for sure.
All right, Bob, let's go to Mike Hembry. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Austin, you've raced on road courses of every stripe and color. how do you see the Indy course maybe on that list? Bigger challenge than most or not?
I think from a NASCAR driver's perspective, from what I experienced last year and even rewatching the race, the circuit itself isn't, the most challenging. There's no blind corners really. I feel like it's a very flat surface, fairly even grip throughout the surface. But I think the restarts are pretty wild, and being able to calculate those out correctly, you can again lose a lot of spots. You saw, guys that were pretty much dominating the race last year not be able to capitalize on some late race restarts, and that cost them the win. So I think from that perspective, I think the restarts at the IMS road course in a NASCAR are probably the most challenging thing for a driver.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Marty Sakala. Hey, Marty, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Austin, thanks for the time. Good to talk with you once again. There's still that possibility we could get 17 different winners. You're 10 points above Kurt, who's the final driver in points with the win. If we get guys in front of you in points that get that first win, like Blaney, Truex, or Harvick, are you thinking you may have to win twice to lock yourself in?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously just described the scenario without me having to really go too far in depth. So, I mean, those are obviously the possibilities. And yeah, a second win is absolutely the best way to ensure any driver to ensure themselves a solid lock into the playoffs, into the postseason. So yeah, if we can go out and win 2 races, hell yeah, that's us. That's a job well done. Obviously, regular season points still matter. That still count for the playoff points that you get once you start in the playoffs. And I don't want to start 30 points back to start the thing. So still chasing after wins and playoff points. And the best way we can do that is to win races.
All right, I got a couple more, but I'll go to the back of the queue. Good luck, man.
Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's go to Rob. Rob, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. And good to see you again. And good to see you, Austin. Kind of a lighthearted question, kind of piggybacking off of what I was asked earlier. Now, obviously, you may have to get another win to get into the playoffs, but are you playing an encore of singing Back Home Again in Indiana should you get that second cup win?
I think you can count on
it. And also, yeah, thank you so much. Sorry about that.
All right, Lee Spencer, I see you there. Go ahead, Lee.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us, Austin. I'm just kind of curious, where do you think you said earlier you're not a technical guy, but I'm sure you see the data. Where do you think the Fords are getting beat? Because, you saw what Michael McDowell did top 10 on Sunday, but I mean, no one else was like in that zip code. And I'm just kind of curious, where do you think that Ford really needs to get to work?
Yeah, I guess when I say I'm not technically minded, I don't get paid to be technically minded. I can be as educated as I can be, as long as I feel like I'm dangerous with what I have. But as far as Fords as an OEM in NASCAR right now, I think there's been tracks where we've been really strong, and there's been tracks where we've been really weak. And I think there's been times where that's been more aggressive and probably less consistent, and trying to figure out, is that a team thing? Is that a car thing? Is that, engines, aero, whatever it may be. So still trying to get data points, I think, is important. But Pocono certainly wasn't a great weekend for us. And as a company, obviously there are other Fords that were able to run strong. I feel like Kevin Harvick, was someone that should have finished in the top 5 without getting taken out there at the end. So, it's not doom and gloom, and it certainly doesn't look great when, our best car finishes 22nd on the day. So, Pocono certainly wasn't a great weekend by any means. And I think Michigan's, probably one we have circled on the schedule that we're probably bound to learn a lot, whether if that's good or bad. But I think even road course wise, I think we can make improvements. I don't think any of us are happy with exactly where we've been just as a team. We want to be trying to contend for race wins every weekend, not being satisfied with a solid top 10. So I know that's a lot for me to say as a rookie, but I'm only here to win races and to run up front. So that's what I want to do, and try and figure out how I can help steer the ship and be as productive as possible.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's start our Argentina questions from Brian. Why don't you get us started? Go ahead, Brian.
Hello, Austin. Brian Miño for Victory Lane Network Argentina. My questions are 2. First question, what are your thoughts about your regular season after the victory in the Daytona 500?
Yeah, as things have gone after Daytona, Daytona certainly being the best day of my life. First Cup Series win, first race in the 2-car. Probably nothing could go any better than how it did. I would say everything else has been fairly par for the course, in my opinion. There's been highs and there's been lows. There's been times where I've been competitive and I've known why, and there's been times I've been uncompetitive and don't really understand why. So I think it's been a challenging year in that sense, as far as everyone's learning at a very fast pace and trying to be able to evaluate yourself and where you can be better and finding strengths and weaknesses. Even as I just talked about with Lee, it's not easy to identify where those strengths and weaknesses are yet, because you got to be able to do that to understand how you can be more consistent. So from that standpoint, I'm happy with the progression that I've made within the team, with the guys that I work with Jeremy, with Doug, all the guys on the 2-car. I feel like we're really getting at a decent spot within our team to try and generate some consistency. And we've had consistent results, probably Pocono being the anomaly there over the last 2 months. So it's been a challenge to go through that, but I think everybody does at this stage in their career.
Last question. What expectation do you have for Indianapolis road course after your victory last year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series?
Yeah, certainly road courses have been strong for us so far this year, but not as strong as I would have liked. So I hopefully we can turn that the top 10 consistency into top 5 consistency at the IMS road course. I think you look at the storylines from that race last year, unfortunately had a lot to do with the racetrack itself. And I feel like this year, with the exception of track limits, probably similar to what we dealt with at COTA. Hopefully, it's an exciting race, and pit strategy always comes into play at road courses, and as well as the stage strategy. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to trying to get a 2-car up front.
Thanks, Austin. Good luck in Indianapolis road course and the season.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Let's go to Matthias. Go ahead, Matthias.
Hello, Austin. I have 2 questions. What are your expectations? What are your expectations in the playoff and 5 races in the regular season? And what are your expectations?
Yeah, I think my expectations in the playoffs. I've watched the Cup Series for a long time, and it always seems like the first round of the playoffs, everyone just completely loses it. The pressure is high, the aspirations are high, and that those first couple of races of the playoffs, it's kind of all over the place. And I look back at this season, and I feel like most of our races have looked like that. So I don't know if that's amplified in the playoffs or something different, but I feel like the competition is as close as it's been all year, and we're really, really in the sport. So I just got a hello from Ryan Blaney, very polite hello from Ryan Blaney through my window. But yeah, I certainly expect that to continue in the playoffs.
How far could you go in the playoff?
I'd like to go all the way to the end. That'd be nice. That's the goal. But I have to keep my expectations realistic, and from where we run all season, I'd like to make it past the first round, and anything from there would be a bonus for me. If I look at it realistically, but I think I would.
Following the results in the road courses and circuits, is there any chance for your running in the IMSA endurance race?
So I raced at the Rolex 24 this past year, and that's a race that I'm pretty passionate about. I've worked pretty hard in my career to find competitive rides in, and it's kind of the only race during our season that I can do in IMSA. So I've already kind of started laying the groundwork for that event in 2023 to try and get my first watch there. That'd be where I'm at, but focus is pretty hard on the season at the moment.
Thanks, Austin. Have a good weekend in the road course and of the season.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. We've got 3 more lined up here. Austin, let's go. Dr. Zoltan, go ahead.
Hey, Austin, thank you for your time and for the opportunity. Many would say you are the most improved driver this year. What improvements are you the most proud of, and what elements of the game are you most focused on right now to continue your improvement?
Yeah, I think what really helps any race team is consistency. And if that's working with different people, getting the communication right. And I feel like I've mentioned that quite a few times, but I do value it quite a lot. You know, the things that I do during the week to prepare and be prepared and come armed with the best knowledge I can. So when I show up at the racetrack, all I'm doing is just driving the race car and really doing my job and executing. And if anything else pops up, we're able to react a lot more freely. So from that standpoint, I feel like that's been a big improvement for us as a group, which I think will happen at all times. But it's not different for me anymore. Racing on Sundays last year was different. You know, it's a different mentality, different approach, different competitors, different field of cars. The races play out differently. They're longer. And all those things are quite normal for me now. Whereas at the beginning of the season, I had to kind of remind myself and make some offsets. And now I feel like it's business as usual. And I think that goes a long way.
Thank you very much for your answer, Austin.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back to Marty. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, Austin, just a couple more here. I know you raced the Cup car at Indy last year, but now you're full time. Is this the race you feel like you have to win now with it being Rogers track? And is it a bigger crown jewel, you could say, than a race like Charlotte or Darlington?
I think for who I drive for, it is next to the Daytona 500, the biggest race I can win. Between Daytona 500 and the championship race in Phoenix, Indy is absolutely one of the most important races I can win as a Team Penske driver. But obviously that goes a lot deeper for me than just racing for Roger. You know, my family's history, you know, what I've been exposed to in racing all really circles back to Indianapolis. So yeah, it's a pretty special track on the schedule. And do I think I have to win? No. Do I want to win? Absolutely. Do I want to do everything I can to make that happen? Absolutely.
And then one more. You and I have talked on the record before about watching F1 in Monaco in the mornings. You got Kimi coming up at the Glen. Now you've got Kvyat this weekend. What's it going to mean to have a chance to race both of them?
Yeah, I think obviously Daniel being a late ad, but certainly be interesting to hear his perspective on kind of what we do. You know, the racing in Europe is so different than in the States. Obviously, it's the same sport and they're cars on racetracks, but you know the mentality of how you go about it is quite a bit different. So it'd be interesting to get his take, whether if it's listening to what you guys ask him in the media or you know any firsthand experience I have. Not like Darth Vader's coming through here. A lot of confused eyes as well. So the Kimi will be really cool as well. I'm hoping that we can peel him off into one of our rookie meetings or whatever, just for the hell of it. But definitely two interesting perspectives to have in our sport.
I think Blaney would be proud of this Zoom call now that we got Darth here. So appreciate it. Good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Bob Pockris, go ahead.
Yeah, Austin, I'm curious if, you know, last year at Indy, there were a lot of issues as far as where curbs were and rumble strips. And I know they've changed some of the curbing. I'm curious if you're confident that that there won't be kind of issues that were seen last year.
The issues that we saw last year, I absolutely believe will not be there anymore with curbs coming up. I mean, that's worst case scenario. And even if we were racing on the same track, I don't think we would have those problems with the next gen car. You know, our cars last year were so low to the ground that the leading edge was the splitter, the sharpest, smallest part of the car, and one of the strongest. So that is probably not surprising that, you know, temporary curbing eventually gets abused, but there's no more temporary curbs. Is full concrete curbs buried under the racetrack, very similar to the curbing that's in the S's and throughout the rest of the circuit. So do I have any concerns about durability for the track? Absolutely not. I think just from an officiating standpoint, there's probably going to be more of a look this weekend. You know, like I said before, similar to Dakota when it comes to track limits, and NASCAR's kind of started putting out the language for that. And I don't think the track is, you know, completely sold as far as, you know, this is the best case scenario, but it's certainly better than last year. And you know, I think there've been ideas floating around for in the future, how do we make it to where it's a much more self-policing racetrack than something that's officiated. But otherwise, yeah, I think we're in a lot better place than last year with last year's cars.
And do you see any different areas to pass with this year's car just because of the way the next gen handles?
I'd say no. Just tire wear has been very interesting at road courses. You go somewhere like Coda that is honestly a pretty abrasive surface, but didn't have much tire fall off. But then you go to Sonoma and it's normal Sonoma, and Road America, it's normal Road America. You got big tire fall off, and interested to see what IMS is going to be like. I feel like it could go either way. I feel like the passing zones will be very similar. And like I said before, I think restarts at IMS are pretty wild, especially, you got opportunity corner number 1 when you have the opportunity to go 4 or 5 wide into the brake zones. So I'd say maybe from a durability standpoint of the car, guys will probably be more likely to use fenders than last year. You'd steal fenders and get crumpled pretty easy, whereas this car, you can bounce off of each other fairly easily and not have any damage as long as you don't break any toe links. So I think that'll probably come into play, having composite bodies more than anything else.
Thank you.
Thanks.